Be like we're filming.
Be like.
Come on, get the stuff.
All right, we going?
Here we're going.
All right. Okay, so we got the rear cylinder on. We're going to put the front cylinder on. I'm going to give you the whole lowdown on how we're doing that. Before we do that, these Dixie pistons are very old, and they came with this style oil ring.
What you love.
I despise these things. Okay? I despise them because they suck they just polish all of the crosshatch off the cylinder, and given enough time, they just starve the entire bike. The hell with those things. So what we're doing is we're going to use the later style Dixie oil rings, which we got there, and the Dixie chrome rings. Now these rings are not reverse torsion. They both have a top marked on them. If you can't see it, they have a chamfer on the inside edge.
Yep.
Okay. The backside has no chamfer. Chamfers go up.
It says top on it, right?
It does say top, but it's very small. It's kind of hard to read. Now, before we do anything, we're going to lay a little bit of oil in there, which is the same thing we did on the wrist pin. And we're going to take these rings and slip them on there. Okay, here's the second.
Number one. Number two.
That's the second ring groove. Here's the top ring groove. Putting it on the right way. Yep.
That's always good.
Yeah, it's always good to double check if you're not sure. Come on, baby, get in there.
Come on, baby.
Yep. Let the good times roll. Okay. So now we got our 3-piece oil ring, and we got that guy. Now, before I go any further, before I go any further, let's take our 10,000 gasket out of the water.
Do we anti-seize this up enough?
Yeah, we anti-seize that up enough. The only reason we anti-seize this surface is so if and when we have to pull these cylinders off again, the gasket sticks to the cylinder and not to the case, so that we don't have to scrape the hell out of the aluminum case. And again, if we look at this 900 gasket, there's a thin area. That thin area's got to go back here. And you see that wide spread?
Yep.
That's for these guys.
Gotcha. So you're going to flip that over. There you go.
Like that. You got it. Now, with any luck, this gasket's going to fit over here. Now, these old Gary Bang gaskets, even when
I got this.
Even when they were soaked, they tend to be a little bit snug. So you got to be careful.
Shimmy, shimmy, shake.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you have to do that. Okay.
Don't just jam it down there.
Don't just jam it down there. All right. So now, that's that. All right. So you can let go of that piston. This one's actually, if you notice that this gasket's actually so expanded that there's little high spots, but that'll go away as soon as it's out of the water. All right. So what we're going to do now is we put a little oil on all of this. We're going to put a little more. Okay. And then we're going to stop.
Grease it up.
No, don't stop your video.
I'm not.
Let me go get the thing that a lot of guys forget to do.
The suspense is killing me.
All right, this is the motor oil we're probably going to be using.
1550.
I kind of like Valvoline. That's kind of my shit. Pour
That's
about a pint right in there.
Full synthetic.
Yeah, so are we both.
Yeah.
All right. That's going to prime up that lower end so that when we fire it up, we get some oil up on these cylinders.
That's enough? That you put in there?
Yeah, about a pint. You don't want to overdo it. Because when we fire the bike up, we're going to leave the oil tank low. About a quart low. Until it runs and make sure we know where we're at.
Everything's recirculating as proper.
With these oil rings, these 3-piece oil rings, I 120 the gaps between the spreader. The gap on the spreader is right here. The gap on one of these rings will be here, and the other will be there. And I don't really give a shit which way it goes like this. But when I come to the compression rings, I do care about it. What I do is I make them 180 apart, and I put the top ring over on the intake side because it's much cooler over there. Anybody who's taking these bikes apart long enough will realize that this side of the cylinder doesn't get nearly the carbon on it. This side does, because this side doesn't burn as much, doesn't get as hot. So I'm going to keep this ring gap over here, and if you claim that that's going to allow unburned vapor into the engine, well, so it does, which I think is better than burned vapor. All right,
so there's that.
So there's that. I like the KD ring compressor.
Is this a paid endorsement?
No, but
KD.
I do. I have to modify them.
When you modify, what do you got to do?
Well, what happens is they can be very difficult to unbuckle when they're in there. So I modify them until I can get them to unbuckle correctly. And I make sure this thing is clean. We got a little oil on everything. Put our gaps where we want them. Or Katie over there. Now the Harley Davidson style ring compressor works very well too. But it's just, in my mind, it doesn't, I need one for every different engine. This one fits all of the engines.
So the Harley one, is that the one that just
clamps? The Harley one, believe it or not, what it is it's about a 1 inch, 3/4 to 1 inch thick piece of cast iron that has a taper in it. So when you put it over the piston, the large end of the taper goes down first.
Gotcha.
Small end, and it's got a slot in it so that once you push, what's going to happen is you push that thing down and there's a slot that opens up, and that compresses the rings, and then when it gets down by the connecting rod where it's all done, you take it out through the slot.
Gotcha.
Right, exactly. But now what you have to do is not only compress the rings, but you have to expand the entire Harley Davidson
tool.
Right. And you need a different one for every bike. All right, so over here.
Yep.
Don't forget this, fellas.
Earl.
Make sure you got full coverage, so you don't got no rust if it's sitting around while you're at work. You can only do stuff on the weekends. Okay. Give me a second here. I'm gonna scooch this thing down a little further.
Scoochie. Scoochie.
What I want to do, if possible.
Get it started.
Yeah, see how a little bit of.
Yep, get a little bit
Just
of
a little
piston
bit.
sticking
Doesn't
out.
need a lot.
Yep,
Because
just so you can get the.
about, and you got to make sure that you get lube on this little chamfer, because that's what's going to allow the rings to jump out of the compressor and then jump into the cylinder.
Understood.
All right, I got it from
You
there,
got it?
Soshi. Yep.
All right, I'm letting go.
So one thumb there, one thumb diagonally opposite. And this is where the modification comes in, so you can take it off with one hand. Supposedly. I guess I'm not modified well enough. Alright. So there's that. Now make sure when you're going into the gasket that you haven't ripped it. You see good?
Nicey nice.
Shazam. Now you put your base nuts on, but you only tighten them up just enough to hold the cylinders down because you're going to loosen them. So we're lining the manifold.
Yeah, right. Get your manifold lined up.
So we don't want that gasket sticking to the cylinder yet. It's not going to stick to the crankcase because we got the anti-seize on there. Now, if you don't have anti-seize, I guess you can use grease. Grease is not my thing, but I've seen it done a million times. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. All right, Soshi, I think that covers us for cylinder installation.
Very good. Stay tuned.